Doctors repeatedly told me just to live with it. But how do you do that when you wake up in pain and with anxiety while you also have an allergic reaction to everything around you? Most people suffering from autoimmune diseases have a completely unrealistic view of what healing looks like. They're not even sure it's possible, but it is possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I healed from over 40 mental and physical health symptoms, and I turned that exact process into a new step-by-step healing formula that has already helped over 200 of my students start to heal their own symptoms. So in this deep dive, I'm going to show you the real healing process that no one ever shares anywhere, and also what outdated, unhelpful advice to ignore so that you can start to heal in practice and get the kinds of results like you're seeing on the screen right now. So how do you know that it actually works? Well, I didn't just read about this formula. I built it myself out of pure necessity, since nothing out there helped me. So instead, I became my own experiment. And once I healed, I also started sharing the formula with others. So let me tell you about my student, Anna. She had hit rock bottom when she joined my program, Helpings, and she was suffering from severe arthritis, deformed bones, and excruciating pain. The council was already planning to adapt her home for a wheelchair because everyone expected her to get worse. But Anna refused that idea. She wasn't planning on spending the rest of her life in a wheelchair. So she showed up week after week, doing every exercise and writing a weekly progress post inside our community. How epic is Anna's energy and use of emojis? Then something incredible happened during an ordinary Wednesday, which she calls Awesome Wednesday. She was in the bathroom washing her hands, which is when two silver rings that had been stuck on her swollen fingers for years just slipped off and dropped into the sink. A few months earlier, the doctor said that she would need surgery just to remove them. And suddenly, she no longer needed it. Since then, Anna's pain has dropped by 50% and then 75% just by using the power of her mind. Her medications are consistently reduced and she's feeling gradually better, which is something almost unheard of for someone with her condition. Anna is living proof that this process works. She's someone who followed the steps and got tangible, measurable results. And that's why I'm so excited to share this formula with you. If Anna can do it despite everything stacked against her, then just imagine what could be possible for you. But here's the thing. Mind training isn't about just trying harder or wanting it more. There's something way deeper going on, something that most people never even see. So when you were a kid, how did you know what to do when you were sick, or what was right and wrong? You obviously listened to the adults around you, parents, doctors, and teachers. Their advice shaped the way you saw the world and yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love my accountant and I trust him with my taxes, but not with my medical advice. Now, listen carefully. It's one thing to hire an expert for their skills, and it's another one to blindly accept their ideas and never question if they're right for you. That's what I did for years. I trusted what the doctor said, even when it didn't feel right. I thought I had no other choice, but I realized that something crucial was missing when my suffering hit a breaking point. So what I'm about to show you is completely different from everything you've heard before. What if the advice you got wasn't true? And what if you could break the rules and write your own? When I was sick, I clung to whatever I was told, even when it meant that I would only get worse. My students do the same. They pick a method and then they stick to it, even when it's not working, or then they quit way too soon. Here's an example from my own life. When I discovered meditation, I was convinced that it was the answer to all my problems, and I went all in every morning for an hour. Meditation helped me become aware of my mind, which was amazing. But here's the big but. As soon as I came out of my meditation, I spent the rest of the day in panic and stuck in old patterns. The constant self-hatred I found written all over my old journals was frankly heartbreaking. That mindset is as toxic as drinking poison, which is why people never heal, because they never put healing into practice. You might say, but I work so hard, and I get it. I did too, but I was working on all the wrong things, and here's the missing piece. It's not enough to understand healing intellectually. You have to live it. Apply what you learn every single day, mentally and physically. All my students have spent years reading, thinking, and trying to heal on a physical level, usually on their last stop. That's when you're desperate enough to try something new, to use your mind in a way that you've never done before. But people only change when life forces them to do so after a diagnosis, some crisis, or relentless symptoms. That's when things get really interesting, and healing is really as practical as anything gets. You can't heal by watching from the stands. You have to step into the arena and stay there until something changes, even if it gets a little messy. So I'm going to show you how to heal by following a formula, one that delivers tangible, measurable results. You could call it the messy middle, since healing has nothing to do with one mystical moment in which all your problems disappear. That might happen, but it's not a repeatable formula that anyone can apply by following the steps. Healing starts in the mind, and the mind is active around the clock. So that also means that you would have to change the way you use your mind throughout the day to see real results, right? Now, most people don't even know what results look like at first. All my students get this wrong. But when they finally start doing the work, eyes open all day long, then that's when everything changes. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that in step number 4. So let me introduce you to the awareness loop formula, focusing on the 4 steps in the middle. Step 1 is to diagnose the problem. The first step to healing yourself isn't about what you're doing physically. You have to define the real problem before you can fix anything. And this is where most people go wrong. They focus on the wrong thing. Let's imagine that you have arthritis, which I really hope you don't. So you're in pain all day long, and naturally you would think the arthritis is my problem. But here's the twist. Arthritis is the symptom. Almost no one talks about the difference between a symptom and the root cause, unless they believe in the power of the mind. It's like trying to stop a river by piling up rocks downstream. No matter how many rocks you use, the water will still keep flowing. But if you simply walked upstream and closed the dam, then the river would stop instantly. See the difference? One is an endless struggle, and the other one is a solution. If you only keep treating your symptoms and nothing is working, then the odds are that you're missing the real problem. You'll likely stay stuck or even get worse if you never dig deeper. And I'll show you a real-life example of this. One of my students spent years trying to figure things out alone. He labeled himself as a shy introvert and a do-it-yourselfer, thinking he had to solve everything himself. But those labels weren't helping. And things started to shift when he finally asked for help to find the root cause. Diagnosing the real problem is the hardest part of healing. Most people struggle with it, often without even realizing it. Why? Because you only see what you believe in. Write that on a sticky note. It's a game changer for healing. Most of us have been taught to doubt the power of our own minds. I certainly did. And people called me crazy or delusional every time I talked about healing myself. That's not malicious. People are just acting on their own beliefs. And then you pick those beliefs too without even knowing it. All my students have at some point accepted their diagnosis or illness as the absolute truth. It's like locking yourself in a prison cell and throwing away the key. But here's the good news. You can choose to break free at any time. So for step number 1, ask yourself, am I just treating the symptom or am I willing to look for the real root cause? That's the first move towards real healing. So the second step in the awareness loop is plan. This is where you follow a proven system and it gives your days some much needed structure. And here's the best part. Making a plan is how you take your power back. Because when you have a plan, even a simple one, then you instantly feel more in control. Think about those times when you've faced a tough decision. You agonize over your options, you're spinning your wheels while also feeling stuck. But then you feel so much relief the moment you finally make up your mind. Suddenly, you know what to do next, and you can start taking action to support your choice. Half the battle is already won. But here's something even more valuable than that. When you plan your day and you actually pay attention to when and where you struggle, then you start to see just how much of your life is running on autopilot. That's what happened with one of my students. She started to notice what her biggest challenges were, and then she realized that she had been repeating the same mental loops for years without knowing it. The planning stage is all about pattern recognition. It's like a series of mini aha moments, and each one helps you understand yourself better. And the more you plan and observe, the smarter your decisions get. It's logical, but it also feels a bit magical. I love thinking about the awareness loop as an experiment. In step 1, you diagnose the problem like a scientist forming a hypothesis. Step 2 is where you plan your experiment. What will you do differently? What will you look out for? Next comes testing your plan and learning from the results. And that brings us to step number 3, the most active part of your experiment. So as you move forward, start by planning your day. Notice when you get stuck and treat each challenge as a clue to the patterns that are running your life. That's how you set yourself up for real change. Now comes the fun part, test. So step number 3 is where you roll up your sleeves and you put your plan into action, trying out different tools and tweaking your strategy as you go. No more dragging yourself through day after day, stuck in the same rut while wondering why nothing changes. Because now you get to experiment. Hooray! And when you do, you'll be amazed by how much power you actually have. I give my students a mental toolbox, and it's filled with personalized tools that you can use every step of the way, eyes open, in real life. Like this helper. One morning, he woke up with intense anxiety, but instead of spiraling, he reached into his toolbox and used a handful of different techniques. And afterwards, he felt better and more in control of his mind and his experience. That's what healing looks like. Step by step, a bit messy, never perfect, but absolutely effective. You start to notice real changes, not just in your mind, but in every part of your life. And perhaps the biggest shift is realizing, wait a minute, I can create change and I'm not stuck. That's a huge win in and of itself. There's a tool for every mood, every problem, and every sticky situation. Meditation is just one option. And all your mental tools move your attention away from the problem and toward the solution instead. The more you practice, the more you see the beauty that you've been ignoring. You start to notice all the good things you stopped paying attention to because your constant survival mode blocked them out. And if you're in that place right now, then I encourage you to start small. Pay attention to everything that is already going right, no matter how tiny it may be. And there's also another benefit in step 3 of the awareness loop. Testing your tools answer the big why me question. You stop feeling powerless because you learn how to pick yourself up faster. You realize that you can elevate your mood in an hour or even minutes with consistent practice. And that changes everything, just like my student describes here. I honestly felt awful every single day when I started. Getting out of bed was a struggle. I hated the way I looked, and I had constant allergic reactions to everything around me. But the worst part was the powerlessness. Never understanding where my symptoms came from, why they appeared, or why I couldn't feel happy. That's the cycle you break in step number 3. You realize that healing is a set of practical tools that you can use over and over. No luck, no magic, just practice. So as you start to move forward, start trying new things. Notice what helps, what doesn't, and celebrate every small win. That's how you start to heal in practice. And everything comes together beautifully in the final step. Step 4 is analyze. So let's recap. You diagnosed the real problem, the root cause, and not just the symptom in step 1. Then you made a plan and chose your tools. In step number 3, you tested those tools in real life, step by step, messy and imperfect, but always moving forward. And now it's time to look at the results. What changed, what worked, what didn't, and most importantly, how do you feel now compared to before? Let me show you how this played out in my own life. I was diagnosed with trauma back in 2018, and I had lost my will to live after years of being told that my conditions were incurable, chronic, and autoimmune. I felt like nothing could be done, and even the doctors treated me like I was contagious. It was pretty soul-crushing. But there was one moment that stuck with me. Something that happened 8 years before shit really hit the fan. And it was a meeting with an Ayurvedic doctor in New York back in 2010. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Your condition is temporary." I sobbed like a child, and that sentence became my lifeline, even when nothing seemed to be working. So let me tell you the same thing in case you need to hear it. Your condition and your situation is temporary. Don't ever forget that. Years later, during my own dark night of the soul, I remembered his words and I decided to trust them. That's why I became my own scientist from 2019 onwards when everything had fallen apart. I spent all my time testing, tracking, and cataloging every mental experiment I tried. And I started to see my mind as a filing system where every thought and piece of data had its place. And eventually, the bigger picture started to make sense. I also discovered a book called E Square by Pam Grout. It invites you to play with new ways of thinking and notice any changes that happen along the way. And that sense of curiosity and fun is something that I now share with my students as they navigate their own healing journeys. The key is not getting too hung up on the outcome. Just collect your data, reflect on what you've learned, and adjust it as you go. Ask yourself, did this tool or technique move me closer to healing or not? Sometimes my students think that they're failing when in reality, they're making massive progress. Understanding why you're struggling and knowing that it's normal makes it so much easier to get through it. Usually, there's even a breakthrough waiting on the other side, like a little bonus for sticking with it. We grow the most when things are really tough and not when it's all smooth sailing. And I can't stress this next point enough. Consistency is what heals you. I've seen it with every student who's followed the awareness loop. And the brilliant side effect is that you start feeling happy for no particular reason. Seriously, do you know how underrated that is? The best part is that nobody needs to know what you're doing. You can train your mind anywhere. Standing in line, driving, breastfeeding, watching TV, or caring for somebody else. And here's what I need to stress one more time. Most people misinterpret their progress. It's easy to panic and think you're failing when setbacks or new symptoms show up. I did the same. And that's why I invite my students to write weekly and entirely optional progress posts. That's what all the screenshots in this video are. They keep you on track. They remind you of what matters, and they show you how far you've come even when you can't see it yourself. The most important thing is showing up for yourself, especially when you don't feel like it. You'll see yourself in everyone else's story, and you'll learn from their struggles, and you'll grow your belief in what's possible. It's all about progress and not perfection. And there's a silver lining in every struggle, and all those hard years do pay off eventually. But first, you need to build those mental muscles, meaning that you observe your mind with your eyes open and adjust your strategy according to your findings. There's a link below if you want to join us inside Helpings and start your own healing journey step by step. And if you're worried that you won't stay consistent, then just know that everyone feels the same way when they get started. That's why we use very specific tools inside Helpings. And go watch this video next, where I'll show you one of my favorite formulas for moving out of fear into positive emotion.